So those of you guys who have been watching the channel know I've been messing around with high intensity training for the past few months, but a big resolution of mine that was really hard to stick to, honestly, for over a year, but this year I'm actually doing pretty good, is trying to incorporate isometrics into my training. And the problem I've really been having with this really is there's just so much information with the right programming, which program I want to stick to. Do I want to have more strength based? In this case, I want to use more so isometrics with hypertrophy based or muscle building type stuff. But just how to incorporate this in my pre-existing program, because it's just kind of fitting into the time. And if dynamic exercise is already kind of doing the job, is isometrics even necessary? So through some experimentation, looking into resources and also isometric research, I think I finally found a groove of a type of isometric training that helps supplements my pre-existing workouts that I'm doing right now, which is an important number of fronts. And I'd say so far it seems successful because I'm seeing steady increases in what I'm logging in my isometric workouts. And also just as important, I'm seeing it's not interfering with my high intensity based workouts. Jury's still out though if maybe there's an optimal spot in here, because maybe I'm overdoing it on some days, and I'll maybe get to that. But so far things seem to be going pretty good. So I'm simply calling what I'm doing here high intensity training isometrics, from essentially taking each body part or exercise to failure in one set. Sometimes I do a second and third set just to kind of measure and kind of see how things are, but I will say by and large, 9 times out of 10, the first set's always the best one, and the second set's just to see what kind of happens. There were some rare occasions where the second set actually surpassed the first set, so that's still something I'm just taking note of, but by and large, it's only one set per exercise and various movement patterns. And some of you guys are already aware of this, but there's many in the high intensity camp world that are already doing this. What I'm talking about is really nothing new. I'm talking specifically about overcoming isometrics. This is whereby you're fighting against an immovable object through increased resistance, and doing so through a longer period of time. So things like the IsoMax, which I'll get into here in a second how I'm using this, and even the Isometrics manual, which is great. A lot of the times I find a lot of overcoming isometric information tends to be more strength-based, where they're kind of shorter-based max holds, say for like 60 seconds. I'm really trying to explore and research how far you can take isometrics to hypertrophy, and might even do kind of a future experiment on that. But people in the high intensity camp, like Mike Mentzer, even himself, was already starting to experiment and see the merits of doing pretty much overcoming isometric type style contractions for their benefits in muscular hypertrophy. And in the high intensity world as well, other advocates like Drew Bay, Stephen Maxwell, I believe John Little too, were more so doing what they kind of dubbed time static contractions, basically saying the same thing. It's overcoming isometrics for a longer period of holds. That was more so, I think, geared towards muscle hypertrophy more so than muscular strength, but certainly there's definitely a carryover there. So based on my own personal findings, my personal preferences, and also because I want to take advantage of this IsoMax, which previously to this I'm saying before in many videos, I'm trying to use this more. It wasn't really fitting, and I do think now I found the best way to kind of take advantage of this for me personally, utilizing the capabilities of this thing. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll link this thing down below. You can buy just the bar alone instead of the setup. I think it's actually cheaper to buy just the bar and some like off-brand straps. So I can link that too. Also, shameless plug, also sell these little boards that work out nicely. But with that said, you don't necessarily need one of these things. You certainly can just use a basic chain and a pipe and get some of these same benefits. You just don't get a lot of the metrics and feedback that you would with an IsoMax. So basically what I do with these isometric workouts is I'm pretty much still following my upper and lower body split, which I've been doing for many years on the channel, but also been using with the high intensity workouts I've been doing currently. And I do the isometric workouts on the off day dynamic days. So I try and have to kind of space them out evenly. I don't do them directly after the training day, but I'll kind of space them out. Basically one upper and one lower isometric day, usually hitting there once or twice a week, depending on kind of how I'm feeling. And the upper body days is a little bit longer, just do the basic movement patterns, chest press, bicep curl, tricep press down, overhead press, some sort of row. And the leg day usually is kind of cut short. It's either a Zercher squat, hack squat, sometimes a deadlift, and maybe a calf raise, but some days it's only like 1 or 2 exercises. The workouts will last at most 10 minutes, just when you consider just setup time and stuff like that, but pretty minimal. Even though they're very brief, do not let them fool you, because sometimes actually these workouts seem to hit me harder sometimes than the actual dynamic days, where it's kind of hard to tell. I'm still trying to gauge that optimal recovery period, but I am mindful. I don't stick with it like I have to fit 2 of these in. If I'm still not recovered from the previous session, I might skip that upper or lower body isometric workout and shave it off to the next week. So being mindful of that, these things can still definitely tax your body, no question. And then within each of those workouts and each of those exercises or sets, I'm keeping each set within about 1 minute to 2 minutes of time under tension. But basically what I do as the time's kind of progressing, I'll just start slowly increasing the intensity. So I'm not gonna jump right into full bore in this thing, also just because that could be kind of cause some injuries and issues. What I do is I kind of start slow, maybe 25%, as I'm like maybe 30 seconds in out of a whole minute, maybe I'm going above 50% or 60, 75%. And then as I'm about like 15 seconds left, that's when I'm really trying to, put in all I got to really kind of go to failure if I can. And when the timer stops, I essentially stop, and then I can log my averages and then sometimes even my max. Throughout a given set, sometimes I will do little kind of like max pulses, but I generally try to make that a progressive increase and then just take my average for that hold. The next thing that I've been doing that's actually takes really full advantage of an IsoMax is you can actually set your load. So now that I have some experience and looking at what are my baseline averages on a given lift, I then can kind of go in here, and again, I can mess with progress the seconds if I want to, but I then can kind of set the load so that this thing is only gonna start beeping once I get through a certain threshold. So let's say my average on a certain lift is like 100 pounds. I might put that threshold to start the second count maybe around like 60 or something like that. You can mess around with the percentage of what you want to do on that average. But thereby, when I'm kind of holding that average, I want to try and stick and hold that average, say for like a longer period of time. I might do this for like 90 seconds. And then once, I'm trying to go as kind of much as I can, but as soon as that I start dropping below that average, the beep is going to stop. So you can see as I kind of put some tension on here, you start hearing it beep. And then as I start letting up, the beep goes away. So that'll be my signal that now I've kind of hit failure on that set. So again, you don't necessarily need to drop a lot of money on this. You sort of just experiment with what you have, but I will say having the seconds and setting the load is a lot more interesting and fun than just kind of ripping on the whatever chain or bar that I was doing. Because sometimes I was doing that, but I just felt like, yeah, it wasn't as interesting. But I will say I find it more interesting and more fun if I'm doing the longer holds, when I'm doing, say, a 6-second hard contraction, which is something immovable. So there's all sorts of ways to take advantage of this, guys. Just kind of simply sharing my results and how I'm kind of taking advantage of this. I'll keep you guys updated on this in the future. Maybe we can put together a whole program if you guys are interested. Just wanted to share with you guys what I'm doing, seeing some success, and also, again, maximizing and also giving somewhat of an update on the IsoMax. So any questions, comments, feedback, let me know, and I'll see you on the next video.